There is a task sitting on your to-do list right now. You know what it is. You have known for days, and yet somehow you have found 17 other things to do instead. You checked your phone. You reorganized your desk. You made a second cup of coffee you did not need. The task is still there, waiting. You have probably told yourself the reason is laziness, that something is wrong with you, that other people just push through it, and you cannot. But here is what neuroscience has discovered. Laziness has almost nothing to do with it. The real reason you procrastinate is far stranger, and it starts not in your work ethic, but deep inside the emotional wiring of your brain. Your brain is not designed to help you complete tasks. It is designed to keep you alive. These are not the same thing. And when those two goals come into conflict, your ancient survival systems win every single time. Dr. Fuschia Sirois, a researcher at the University of Sheffield, who has spent over a decade studying procrastination, found something that changed how scientists think about the whole phenomenon. Procrastination is not a time management problem. It is an emotion regulation problem. When you avoid a task, you are not being lazy. You are trying to escape a feeling. Think about the task on your list. What is it attached to? Uncertainty, maybe. The fear that you will do it wrong. The weight of being judged. The pressure of high stakes. The sheer fog of not knowing where to begin. Your brain reads all of that as a threat, not a metaphorical threat, a real one. The same ancient alarm system that kept your ancestors from walking into a predator's territory is now telling you to stay away from your inbox. The part of your brain that fires when this happens is called the amygdala. It is small, almond-shaped, and extraordinarily fast. It does not wait for logic. It does not check your calendar or care about your deadlines. It simply detects emotional danger and sends one signal: avoid. And when you do avoid, something interesting happens. You feel better, almost immediately. That relief is real. Your nervous system actually calms down the moment you step away from the threatening task and pick up your phone instead. This is what makes procrastination so persistent. It works, not for your long-term goals, but for your short-term emotional state. It works perfectly. Your brain learns that avoidance brings relief, and your brain loves relief. Dr. Timothy Pychyl at Carleton University has studied this loop for years. He describes procrastination as giving in to feel good now at the expense of feeling good later. The key word is feel, not think, not plan. Feel. Your procrastination is not a failure of willpower. It is your brain prioritizing emotional comfort in the present moment over abstract future reward. And from an evolutionary standpoint, that is actually a reasonable strategy. Abstract future rewards did not keep your ancestors alive. The immediate world did. Here's where it gets even more complicated. The tasks most likely to trigger procrastination are not the hardest tasks. They are the most emotionally loaded ones. Research by Dr. Sirois and others consistently shows that people procrastinate most on tasks tied to self-worth. A creative project you care deeply about, an email to someone who intimidates you, a phone call where something important is on the line, a doctor's appointment you are afraid of. These are not hard tasks in a technical sense. They are threatening tasks in an emotional sense. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a threat to your body and a threat to your ego. Both light up the same alarm system. Both produce the same avoidance impulse. So the harder you care about something, the more likely you are to procrastinate on it. Which means that the people who seem to procrastinate the most are often not the people who care the least. They are the people who care the most. There is another layer beneath this, one that researchers did not fully understand until neuroscientists began mapping the relationship between procrastination and something called temporal discounting. Your brain does not treat the future as real, not really. Brain imaging studies show that when people think about their future selves, the neural patterns look almost identical to the patterns produced when thinking about strangers. Not your close friends. Strangers, people you have never met. When you tell yourself you will do the task tomorrow, you are essentially handing it off to a stranger. You do not feel the urgency for that stranger that you feel for yourself right now. The emotional weight of a future deadline is not nearly as vivid as the emotional relief of avoiding it today. This is not a character flaw. This is a feature of how the human brain processes time. It was built for a world where the future was uncertain and the present was immediate. Planning 6 months ahead was not a survival skill for most of human history. So what actually works? The answer is not willpower. Trying harder does not bypass the amygdala. It simply adds more emotional pressure to something that is already emotionally overloaded. What works, according to the research, is changing the emotional equation. Dr. Kristin Neff at the University of Texas has done extensive research showing that self-compassion, not self-criticism, is one of the most reliable predictors of actually getting things done. When you berate yourself for procrastinating, you increase the emotional threat level associated with the task. You make the avoidance impulse stronger. When you treat yourself with something closer to curiosity or kindness, the threat diminishes. The task becomes slightly less dangerous, slightly more approachable. There is also a technique researchers call implementation intentions. It sounds formal, but the concept is simple. Instead of telling yourself to work on a project, you tell yourself specifically when and where and how. Not, I will work on the report, but when I sit down at my desk at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, the first thing I will open is the report, and I will write 1 paragraph. The specificity short-circuits the brain's search for escape routes. There is less ambiguity, less emotional fog, less for the amygdala to flag as dangerous. Another strategy that consistently appears in the literature is what researchers call temptation bundling, popularized by behavioral economist Catherine Milkman. You pair something you dread with something you genuinely enjoy. Not as a reward after, during. You only let yourself listen to a podcast you love while doing the thing you have been avoiding. Your brain stops associating the task purely with threat and begins associating it with something pleasurable. The emotional calculation shifts. None of these strategies are about forcing yourself to stop feeling. They are all about working with your emotional brain rather than against it, because your emotional brain is not going anywhere. It has been running this same program for hundreds of thousands of years. You are not going to overpower it with a productivity app or a stricter schedule. You procrastinate because your brain is trying to protect you. From judgment, from failure, from the raw discomfort of caring about something and not knowing whether you can do it well enough. That is not weakness. That is your nervous system doing its job. The task is still on your list. You know what it is, and now you know why you have been avoiding it. Not because you are lazy, not because something is wrong with you, but because some part of you cares enough about it to be afraid. And the first step through that fear is not forcing yourself forward. It is understanding where the fear came from in the first place. There is a task sitting on your to-do list right now, and now you know exactly what has been keeping you from it.